Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay at home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight. Got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet. Cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Figured I better hit record before I get yelled at for
Right
missing
to
out
it
on things.
before Danny starts crying. 'Cause Brock told me, Brock said, we have things to talk about. And I went, what? Bring it then, man. I didn't do anything wrong.
I know, we got things to talk
'Cause
about.
I've got children and that's how they respond. So
I loved your
anyway,
response. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot that's happened in this past week as far as the dad world is concerned, especially in our fun, organization of people. Like I keep seeing these really fun posts from different guys. Like I saw the other day, Joshua Bernstein got an award for his time volunteering at his kid's school. That was really cool. So I wanted to be like, congratulations to him because that's
as
one of
he
the things
should.
that we always talk about at just that getting involved at your kid's school is really important. And
Hmm.
it's nice to see that the school also is kind of lifting him up in that and showing that they appreciate a dad being there and putting in the time and effort that they are. So I was excited to see that. And then
And
Charlotte,
if I
yeah,
remember it correctly, he also said basically get involved at your school.
he did. He did.
And it really hit home to me because it's something that I've wanted to do for so long, but there's never really been a place. I didn't feel great at the PTO, to be honest. It was, um, I was a man, and they were not expecting men to be there. Basically, they would make jokes about how the husbands are kind of useless, and how well we're gonna need that. Well, we'll just wait until the end, then we get the men to do this kind of stuff. And I let it stop me. And I have to say that's something that I should not have done. And I'm glad now that we're living in Wisconsin that I'm more active at the schools. They see me, they know me, and being able to. We talk about owning this job all the time, right?
Yeah.
Part of that is, even for me, a struggle. So, do it. Go to your school, ask them if you need to, go read, be one of the people that reads to the kids. That's always helpful.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, like
Or
Joshua said, do it.
yeah, or be a class parent, that kind of deal. Like I
Hmm.
I volunteer every once in a while with a thing called WebMart at the school, which is the name of my kid's teacher's last name. And so what they do for that is they read books and they take AR tests, and then they get fake Monopoly money for scoring whatever points they do on that and other things, and then they can use that money at the beginning of the month to buy little items, and actually like the parents are the ones that go out and collect these items or get them on sale, like squishmallows that are like clippable onto like a book bag, or bookmarks and pencils and baseball cards and all kinds of stuff like that, and the kids can
Hmm.
grab what they want out of it. So
And they love it.
oh
I
yeah, they
mean,
do. They totally love it. And sometimes they don't even buy it for themselves. They actually are buying it and giving it to other people. Like I know like my daughter will buy things and bring them home and be like, "Here, mama, check this out," or give it to Hezekiah or something like that.
yeah,
So, which I think
awesome.
is just so adorable. So, yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, so definitely getting involved is important. The other person I was going to also say that is in that same realm is Charlie O'Hara. And Charlie, he's been involved with his school for quite a while too, and I think he even was on the PTO or something along those lines for a bit of time. And he said that he would basically, I think, continue on through it for like a certain amount of time. And he stepped in and did some lunchroom stuff and different things like that. So I thought it was really cool to see, just him talking about his time there and just the things that he's been doing. So, yeah, I mean, just getting involved is so important. And if you've got the time to do it, now more than ever, there's a greater appreciation uh,
Hmm.
for parents getting involved, and especially dads.
Yep.
And I I think that, you know, if there's never been a better time, now is it.
Hmm.
So
And I,
hopefully those stories, encourage people.
yep. And Charlie's story, especially because he specifically said he changed the name of the group from, because I'd look it up, Tuesday Moms to Tuesday's Helpers.
Yeah.
So basically, we're just letting everybody in today. It's all right. We can have dads here too, and anyone else. I love that he did that again because it's going in and taking a bit of ownership in it and saying, I love the work. I'm sure he loves the work moms do. I think we all do. We really appreciate what they've done for, both for us and for our kids and what have you. But let's open it up.
Yeah.
Let's recognize that we're all parents. We're all caretakers. This is something we're involved in, no matter what our gender or sex might be.
No, definitely. Yeah. And I think that that's starting to become more and more apparent. So that's very cool. Um,
Hmm.
I've run into a couple different groups here in town, even where they've changed their name from being directed towards moms to saying parents. And
Hmm.
I was talking with one of them recently, and I'm like, I'm so appreciative of the fact that saw that something that needed to change. And, they were just like, well, we saw an uptick in parents coming in, especially dads, and we wanted to make it more inclusive. And I'm like, there it is right there. Like that's all it takes is that
Thumbs up,
acknowledgement.
man.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So yeah, definitely excited about that. So that's, some exciting things that are going on just with some of our members. I know that the June membership drive is getting ready to kind of ramp up here soon. There's already been some
Hmm.
announcements about that, and so that's going to be exciting as well. And uh, I think that there's some other fun announcements coming here pretty soon too. Because I think that when this airs, actually, uh, they will be out. So, but I will be cautious and not say anything
Hmm.
because I just want to I want to make sure. But if you're a member, I do know that behind the scenes there are things going on to kind of give you extra silver linings to becoming a member of this organization, and that was one of the goals actually was to when we really were going to push membership was having incentives for being a member, and I
Right.
feel like definitely one of those boxes was recently checked, and so it'll be really exciting when that gets announced.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
A bunch of exciting stuff for that coming up for sure.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But today we have a special guest. We've got a
Yeah.
returning guest actually, so that's going to be exciting. Um, this guest, man, we had them on. Was it almost a year ago?
It was 2 years ago, episode 58, I believe.
Episode 58.
So, yep. Because
Whew,
I had to go find it because I knew that would come up. And I'm like, how long has it been? And it's been about 2 years. I think it was
that's
February of 22. I had just gotten COVID because we talked about that on the thing. I'd just gotten COVID and felt awful, but we still did it. And then
right.
we had them on. Yep. I think it was 58. I had to look it up on YouTube though. So
Yeah, it's been a minute for sure.
been a bit.
And when we
And
had them on, we were just talking about this idea of researching this book that they were looking to write, and it was a group of people that were involved in it. It wasn't just one person. So we had you had Becca Block, and there was Grace and
mhm,
Mark were all on the show talking with us about researching the book. Um, Can you help me give a shit? And
mhm.
it was very fun talking to them because there were a lot of just research details going into it. It was like, all right, where are you going? Because they were interviewing lots of students and things like that.
Yep. Yep. And I actually, maybe 2 days before the email that we got from Becca, I had thought, I wonder how they're doing. I wonder where they're at now, where that book's going, because I couldn't find that it was published yet. And it's right in my area now because I have two teenagers
Yeah,
and there are concerns. There's always concerns. And we have, everything seems fine. Everything seems fine, right? But motivation has been an issue. My 14-year-old is just done with school. He's just
Yeah.
done. I don't care. I've gotten the grades I'm going to get and I'm out. And there's a lot that's gone into that, but the basis of the book was the fact that they talked to teenagers, they go, what's going on? What's the problem? And they're like, I don't give a shit. I just don't care. And that's
Yep.
such a big issue, especially for teenagers. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that we're having them back on and get a chance to see how, the book's going and, publishing dates and all that. And my wife actually said, so you're going to get a copy of that, right? I'm like, yes, yes, I am. Because yes, I am. There's just, I don't
Yeah.
know. How do I motivate this kid?
Well, from my standpoint, I just want to know when the audiobook is going to be ready because I've really invested in audiobooks and
Yeah.
have found great worth and I feel like I have a better balance on like actually listening to an audiobook and also being able to do work at the same time.
Hmm.
And
Good, good.
super appreciative of that because I've been able to read through three three different books actually
Nice.
here in the past month, and two of them were really popular like fantasy books that are really big right now. One is Fourth Wing, and the other
Hmm.
one is Iron Flame.
We
Those
talked about
are,
that.
yeah, so we talked about that. But then I meet with a couple of the guys who are dads at my church, and one of them recently suggested reading the book Grit by Angela
Hmm.
Duckworth. And I feel like it's like another like it's a psych like a it's from a psychologist, but it's similar to, Can You Help Me Give a Shit in the fashion of like it's for those who are more like already have the passion and drive and being able to figure out who that is. And it's a very quick read, but basically like she ends up like studying like a bunch of candidates from like West Point or that are going to West Point and kind of talking about like, well, all these people get picked, but in the end, like, a massive amount of them like drop out within like the first 2 weeks. Like, why is that?
Hmm.
They do all this. So it gave me a lot of insight. It's actually something I'm going to have Hezekiah read or listen to because
Hmm.
it's not over his head. There's no technical talk in it.
Hmm.
It's very down to earth, and I think that it would help somebody like in his where he's like super intelligent, constantly talking about wanting to do these big things. But I think him being able to understand like there are difficulties that are going to come with it and being able to identify like when that kind of comes up to be able to maneuver through it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my
And
book recommendation for
nice, nice.
yeah.
I am reading the Dresden Files. It is a series of, I don't know, 15 or 20 books, I can't remember, by Tim Butcher. And it's basically a modern day professional wizard
Ooh.
who works with the police department and with things going on in the community that other people deny even happens, and how he makes his way through these really harrowing experiences, fighting, ghosts and vampires and other monsters of sorts.
Okay.
And I'd seen there was a series on it a couple, actually probably 10, 15 years ago. Actually, it's a long time. And I'm like, this is neat. I liked it and it was okay. And then the book just came up in a recommendation. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead. And I don't like buying books unless I get a physical copy, but I
Yeah.
actually paid $5 for each one of them so far, to get them on
Nice.
Kindle so that
There
I
you
can read
go.
it wherever I go and what have you. And it's really, really interesting to me, um, that it's just a good series about a good guy trying to do things in a bad world,
Okay.
and how he generally triumphs, but there's a lot of fails and falls along the way.
Yeah.
He's very human in the way they portray him in a lot of the stuff. So that's my recommendation is anything of the Dresden Files with Tim Butcher.
Very cool. Very
Um,
cool.
yep.
Yeah. And then for Mother's Day this past
Mhm.
my Corey was like, she's like, I just want to do like I don't want to have big expectations. I'm like, okay, I would like to know what your expectations are then.
Very well done, sir. Very well done.
And
Well done.
she was like, well, I want to work in our garden and if possible, I'd like to go check out this little bookstore that our friend was telling us about. And I was like, okay. So we worked in the garden on Saturday and got a bunch of stuff done and went to church on Sunday and then came home and got something to eat real quick and went to this little bookstore that was amazing.
Hmm.
That had amazing bourbon, by the way. So like we
That's my
show
kind of bookstore.
I know, right? Yeah. Like we roll into this place and it's got a very like apothecary type of feel, like almost like, just kind of gothic type of thing. And Corey walks in and just starts going to town, like picking out books. And she's like, "Do I have a limit?" I'm like, "Buy whatever you'd like. It's okay."
Hmm.
And so she's looking around. The kids sit down at the counter talking to the shopkeeper, who's like this guy who's, I don't know, he's probably like in his mid to late 30s, and he sits down and the kids start talking to him, telling them the kids are telling them what they've been reading, and he's just blown away by these this 11 and 8-year old who are reading these books about dragons and
Hmm.
all kinds of things, and giving very good explanation and description into why they enjoy it. And then uh like I had some bourbon, they got cider and hot chocolate. Corey kept shopping, and in the end we walked out with about $150 in books.
Hmm.
So but it was
Which
fun.
is
Yeah.
appropriate. Yeah,
Yeah. And the
that's.
kids even got books too, so that was the other thing. And but the shopkeeper and I were talking about the audiobook that I'm currently listening to, which is Red Rising. And so that, like, it was just a great time
Mhm.
for being in there. And so yeah. So that was fun
And
just to
Mother's
get
Day,
to.
that was Sunday,
That was
the
Sunday, yeah,
bookstore.
Mother's Day,
Okay,
yeah,
yep.
at the bookstore. Yeah. So it was just a great
Yeah.
way to like go in and basically also like support this brand new local business that just started in October too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
especially a bookstore. They need,
Mm,
as much help as they can get. Yeah. And
exactly.
and we've had this question almost every year, or this problem comes up almost every year in our group, about Mother's Day. People are like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I did wrong, or they didn't like this. And the answer, I think, hands down, is like you did.
Yes.
Ask. Okay,
Yes.
you don't tell me what you want, because I'm not screwing this up. I'm doing what you want exactly. And if
Right.
you don't have the like natural ability to choose things for people, like picking out gifts and such like that, and a lot of people don't, you need to just tell your partner,
Mm-hmm.
I, I don't know what you want me to do, and I'm not going to do it on my own. I need you to tell me what you'd like this to be like.
Yeah.
And if this year wasn't good, guys, write down a list of what didn't go well, what you didn't like, or what your partner liked or didn't like, and do it next year,
Right.
because it's coming back. You got to be prepared for it. You got a year to prepare now. But look at the things that she loved and do those again, or
Mm-hmm.
something similar, or just plain ask. And I love that
Yep.
you did that. I love that you and Corey have that kind of relationship. I know Marnie and I have that kind of relationship. Although I'm pretty good about picking gifts and things. Marnie's also very low maintenance, so it's easy for me.
Yeah.
But just having that, and it's the same. And I want to encourage everybody. Father's Day is coming.
Yes.
Make a list. Tell your family what you want.
Mm-hmm. I
If
already said
it's
what I wanted, a black stone griddle.
nice,
I want
yeah,
one
as you
bad.
should, as you should. It's fantastic, yeah. But yeah, yeah.
Cool,
So
man.
Father's Day's coming. Get ready for it.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll be talking about that more too. There's some things that are
Mhm.
coming up for Father's Eve and things like that, and we'll get on to
Oh
that in
yeah.
the next coming episodes. But we're gonna take a break, and we will be back with Becca and Grace talking about the book. And yeah, so see you in a moment. Become a member of the National At Home Dad Network, an organization focused on providing advocacy, community, education, and support, connecting with households where dad is the primary caregiver of the children. We do this through our webinar and podcast series, mental health support groups, regular online social events, as well as our annual convention. The National At Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization. Without the generous support of its members and the community around it, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. Becoming a member gives you access to past convention speaker presentations, the ability to vote for board members annually, and ensures that the organization's fees and bills are in positive standing. Oh yeah, it should not go unmentioned that there is some cool swag headed your way if you decide to become a member. For only $35 a year, your membership provides you with the exclusive content only we can generate. And you'll be supporting an organization that benefits families all around the country and world by advocating for them, offering them community, providing education and guidance, and supporting them to grow in their parenthood journey. And one last thing, if you contribute $500 or more, you will become a lifetime member. Not only will you receive everything already mentioned, but also a certificate recognizing your status and an exclusive National At-Home Dad Network challenge coin with our trademark logo, Dads Don't Babysit. So, what are you waiting for? Become a member today. Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for listening to that commercial. Hopefully you consider being a member of the organization after hearing all that. With us today, though, we have our guests, and we're going to be talking about a really cool book that like we said earlier, we started talking about the researching process for that about 2 years ago. So we're very excited to have Becca and Grace back with us. Thanks for being back on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm going to start real quick. Grace, you're finishing up what year of college now?
So I just finished my junior year.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, we
Yeah.
talked to you back when you were a freshman.
I know, yeah. I was just thinking about that this morning. It's kind of
Whew.
crazy.
Life has definitely flown by in that time, and a lot has happened too. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Can I
Eh,
say, just as a dad, and take this please as a compliment, that your confidence has definitely gone up. You can
That's so
tell.
kind.
Yeah. Well, it's just part of growing up and what have you. But, I could tell you're much more your own person than you were. Like, still, and I think at freshmen, we're all at that point where we're kind of like, who the heck am I? And you're just doing what you think you could enjoy, but you really stepped into it. And I wanted to compliment you on that.
That's so kind. I think I'm still stepping into it for sure. It's a
too.
new decade.
You got time. It's okay. Yeah. Don't rush it. It goes fast enough as it is. So, Becca, glad to have you back. Like Danny was saying, it seemed like kind of all of the pieces fell into place with him thinking about the book and you contacting us. So we're excited to hear what's been going on in the world. How has everything kind of progressed since we last talked to you?
Yeah, so my memory is not perfect. I will own that. When I looked, I was like, wait, it has been 2 years? 2 years, unlike when I was in college where the years were clearly defined, right? As you all can probably relate to as parents, years are not clearly defined. They're clustered by like, could my child talk or not talk? How much did I have to protect them physically versus psychologically, right? So those are the kind of
Nice.
like, cluster chunks that my brain tends to move in. So probably will get some of this wrong. Grace, you might remember some of it better, but I believe when we talked to y'all last time, we were still finding interviewees. We had been, about halfway through our interviewees. We found additional interviewees afterwards. And then after that, we needed to actually go through and see, so what emerges from that, right? What emerges from all the conversations that we had with young people, instead of just, putting our opinions on what we thought they were going to say. And saw the themes. We tried writing the book one way, where it was like an individual story about each person per chapter. Then we were like, that's not working. And so we changed the whole structure, made it into like themes with different student stories woven into each of the chapters, put it all together, got a publisher, and now it'll actually be coming out July 9th. So it's been a lot of stuff to do while Grace also being a full-time student and me working full-time and being a parent. We've been practicing our juggling skills for sure.
July 9th. Wow, that's going to come up real quick too. So congratulations on getting a publisher. What publishing house are you working with?
We decided to go with a small press called Atmosphere.
Okay, nice. That's exciting. Like, so are you going to basically the book itself, July 9th, is that something that is going to be in a lot of bookstores? Is it going to hit Amazon? How are people going to be able to acquire the book on that date?
Yeah. So it's actually already up for pre-order on Amazon and any other major like online retailer that does pre-orders. Although I always like to encourage people to instead hit up their local bookstore and ask them to pre-order it instead. Support local if you've got one. Not all of us are lucky enough to have one, but if you do, then I encourage that. But otherwise, yeah, both the ebook and the paperback are available for pre-order on Amazon already.
So that's exciting. The book is coming out in July. And for me, I'm an audio guy. I enjoy a good audio book. I can't really sit down and read a book. I turn into a narcoleptic dachshund when I try to read. And so, what plans do you have for us audio listeners?
A great question. Grace and I have talked about this. That is part of the reason I borrowed this fancy mic from my neighbor that records audiobooks. I am trying my hand at recording it because for nonfiction books, it is definitely the preference is not to like go get actors and have them
Hmm.
perform it, right? It should be one or both authors reading it. Grace's schedule is nuts with school. So I'm I'm trying to carve it into basically Saturday morning, bribe my children with screens, close myself in the room, record sections of it. I don't know if I will succeed. So I don't know that I can promise you an audiobook, but I'm giving it a shot. We're going to see if I can make something that doesn't make me cringe so much at the sound of it, that we can also release it in audiobook format.
I mean, I know a really good audiobook guy he's done quite a few, who's a part of our organization, and
Is he free?
David Stanley.
Is he free? Ooh,
I don't know.
David. Yeah.
I don't
No,
know,
no.
but
David does have some
David's
chops.
amazing. He's an older guy that's got an amazing voice, and so if you're looking for
You're
somebody,
just insulting my voice, aren't you? That's
no,
your
no, no.
passive aggressive way
I
of saying, I don't know if I'd listen to an audiobook from
I,
you, Becca,
What
maybe
I'm no, what
David.
I'm saying, what I'm saying is that he's probably got better time because his kids are all adults and out of the house. So it's just
that's true. He's older than me, so yeah, he's practically retired. But I will say, I really like the point that you made that when it is a nonfiction book, you do want to hear the author.
True.
That's who you want. That's who basically you're going to talk to. I read a book recently. It's called Of Men and Boys by Dr. Richard Reeves, I think it is, and he told that story so much better in the book version than the book I read. And I'm a big reader. I love, imagining my own voices and all that stuff in books and what have you. But I didn't get the depth of it when he came in. He was just more involved and in a way more passionate. So I do hope if you have the time that you are able to get that out for the non-readers like Brock. It's gonna help them out.
Yeah, help
But
us out.
It's still
There's
reading.
that.
Listening is still reading. Listen, I embrace neurospiciness as a neurodiverse person myself. Like there's lots of different ways to process words.
Yeah,
I still count that
Mhm.
as reading.
I
My
appreciate you saying that because there's so
my
many
11
people that don't.
yeah, I do, but I just like my 11-year-old came to me this morning and gave me a permission slip so that he can check out from the school library. They have new little MP3 players, and it's called a playable, and it's specifically just books in the library, rather than a download or anything like that. Is you take this thing home with you and you plug your headphones in, whatever.
Oh,
And I looked at
audiobooks
it
that
and
are
I
not
went,
on CD, huh?
yeah, yeah, right. Not on CD. It's like, what's a CD? And I said, my son, I love you and I understand. He goes, it's much faster. It's faster generally than I read, and I don't have to imagine the voices or characters or anything. And I'm like, I get all of that. That's cool. But I'm always going to somewhere in my heart, because I'm an old man, think, well, then you're just lazy. And that's wrong. It's wrong. And I told him this. I said, this is wrong. This is not a right thinking thing for me. But I was born in the 60s. Okay. So I have a lot of stuff that I've overcome.
You're just picking on all of us
just,
narcoleptic
just,
dachshunds, man. I
I,
can't
I,
help you.
I do use my Kindle. So I don't have to have an actual physical paper book. I feel like that's a really big step for
We
old
are
people.
all proud of you for being in the 21st century.
Right. For stepping into it. It's just it's 2024 now. Yeah, I should actually, just get a Kindle. But anyway, we are really looking forward to it. Any highlights that you can give us about what you discovered while you're reading it, or?
Yeah, Grace, I've been yapping a bunch. I'm curious what your highlights and key takeaways are before I yap some more.
Oh man, it's so interesting. I was talking to my sister about this the other day. I think my reasons for joining the project at first are so different from now, like why I'm staying. And then even the lessons in the book like keep coming up. I feel like it's even more relevant for me now than it was when I was a first year in college, if you can believe that. I think that's been a highlight, just sort of reflecting on the process of this book, definitely.
With the fact that you've been a part of this process from the beginning, and you all said that you mentioned that you kind of shifted gears and changed how you were going about producing the book and actually writing it. What was it that I guess like caused for that change to happen, and what have you seen since making that decision to change?
I think I mean, Becca, you can totally jump in and say your piece, but I think the flow is a little bit better. I think, Becca and I had talked about how we wanted each chapter to be one student, but now that it's more thematic, like it's more like each chapter talks about has a focus on a theme, and then we're weaving in bits and pieces from each student. I think that feels a little bit better. The flow is a lot better. I think you can resonate with each student a little bit differently based on the theme of the book. And I think it's been interesting to sort of take a step back and think about like that process because it's a very academic and like scholarly process. I don't know if you've like picked up on that, Becca, but like I was definitely thinking about that the other day, the way we initially thought about approaching this book, and then what we ended up doing was exactly the way like scholars and researchers do their like PhDs and how they code and things of that nature. So it's definitely been interesting to sort of go through that trial and error. But I think the product is significantly better.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I'm going to have a bias towards working that way, even if I try to work against it because I did it for my master's thesis. I did it for my dissertation. I did it as a researcher, former writing professor, right? So like all the nerdiness weighs heavily on me. I think one of the big like later stage revisions we had to do was our editor pointing out basically she was saying like you sound way too academic, right? Like your tone is too academic. And so we went through and did a massive revision for tone to stop a lot of the kind of more academic writing style things of doing a lot of like signposting and saying like this is what you're about to hear. Now you actually hear it. Now let's sum up what it was you just heard, right? Like those are very academic moves to make in academic articles, which I have published and presented and things like that. And I had to unlearn a lot of my learning to try to make, revisions that would be more engaging for a lay audience. But I think you're right, Grace. The work that underpins it is still coming from that researcher lens of like, hey, let's listen to what it was that we learned from the young people that we spoke to. What are the themes that they have in common? What are the things they don't have in common that are distinct? How can we call that out? And when we had tried to make it where it was each student's story for itself, even though I love the narrative of that, right? I also love stories. I read a fiction book a week because I'm a book addict and an insomniac. And so, I want, but when I did that, what both of us noticed as we were putting stories together that way is we're like, wait a second, but this piece of Ashley's story is so akin to this piece of Connor's story, and having them in separate chapters is making it really hard to see these through lines. And so then we sort of shifted it so that it can be, so basically now the themes of the book are oriented towards like, okay, family dynamics, right? What are the family dynamics that support or inhibit engagement? What are the teacher dynamics that support or inhibit engagement? What are the peer dynamics that support or inhibit engagement? What are the different ways that students can make choices that support or inhibit their engagement, both in their classes and their school programs and their extracurriculars? Things about technology as a whole separate final chapter, right? And the ways that that affects things. And when we reorganize it that way, even though I didn't like the loss of like just hearing one person's voice for an extended period of time, I think it helps make it more useful for readers to be able to say, okay, the piece that I'm really thinking about right now is about the family dynamic, right? I really want to get into being able to think about what different young people have to say about what their families did that helped or inhibited their ability to engage in school. Or, oh, I really want to think about tech. Let me jump to what it was that they were, saying about tech, right? So hopefully it makes it easier to hone in on the things that are most relevant for people.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great. Now, so how many students about would you say that y'all interviewed?
Formally, we interviewed 20. We had informal conversations with a larger number of parents, educators, and young people, but like formal, recorded, coded interviews was 20.
This seems like a good sample from what I know of surveys or whatever. But so did you find that the students, the teenager, what have you themselves, found some positive, let's say, in the fact that they're not the only one? A lot of what I see with my teenagers and teenagers in school is even if they have a good friends group or they're on a sports team or they have people with them that are a part of their support network, they often feel like, well, I'm the only person experiencing this, and I think you could go back 5,000 years and find writings where teenagers said, nobody understands me. But more than that to a point where I mean, like we talked about, a lot of what you do as a teenager, you're questioning yourself, you're questioning who you are, and it comes down to, am I the problem? Why am I not motivated? Why can't I do this? So, was there any type of like, I'm sure you didn't tell the students, what the other people were saying, but any of that that came out that you noticed?
I can speak to this for sure because I think it was an experience I had interviewing a lot of these students while also, I think there's a way to talk about the results or like talk about this experiences of other students while you're interviewing one student without, breaking confidentiality and whatnot. And so, yeah, I definitely found that there are so many students who I was able to relate to and vice versa. Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit it on the nail, not even in this context of motivation, but also just in other contexts, like worthiness and like academic validation, like those sorts of things. Like those are definitely things that students, like young people my age, are feeling so alone in. There's like a loneliness epidemic, which is like a term that's being thrown around, but it's so real, especially like among, kids my age. And I say kids my age, but like the focus of the book is, a little bit younger, but there's this wide range of young folks who are definitely experiencing a type of loneliness in school, and as a result, it's really impacting like their approach to school and their
Yeah.
motivation.
And I think there were a couple of things that are interesting to me related to that, right? So the first, like Grace alluded to, as we would interview young people and we would hear them share something in this kind of tentative, like, I don't know, is this a real thing? We'd say, it's interesting because another person that we interviewed was actually talking about that. And you would see their eyes light up of like, wait, I'm not, I'm in Idaho and someone you interviewed in Florida also is having this experience, right? Like it helped them feel not only more comfortable, but also more confident that what they were experiencing was worth talking about, right? So that was really cool to see. I think the other thing that was interesting for me to observe is we spoke with some students who categorize themselves as like high achievers, right? So they're doing the things, they're accomplishing the stuff. Grace is one of those, in case you hadn't figured that out already, full-time student at Penn, also helping write a book, right? And another group of, about half the students we spoke to would not classify themselves as high achievers, right? They would put themselves more in the category of like, I do okay, I pass, right? It's fine. School is fine, or I'm getting by. What was fascinating to me was actually how much you might think like, well, of course, the high achievers are going to have things in common, and the students who are kind of like whatever about school are going to have things in common. But the amount that the high achievers and the students who felt fairly apathetic about school had in common to me was especially interesting, because I think that we tend to overlook or go, well, if you're achieving all the things, then you must be good to go, right? Like you're good to go in high school, and then you're going to do great in college, and then you're going to do great after college. And that's a dangerous assumption to make. And there was a lot more in common about the loneliness elements that Grace is talking about, the feelings of like, is what I'm doing actually meaningful? Is it actually relevant? And it's almost two different reactions to the same core uncertainties and concerns. One is to say, I don't know if this is going to be relevant or not, so I'm going to do everything, right? Like I'm going to do it all in the hopes that something is going to turn out to be useful. And then that runs major risks of burnout. And the other reaction is like, I'm not sure if any of this is relevant, so I'm going to shut myself off a bit, right? I'm going to feel apathetic. Apathy is a great defense mechanism. I think we tend to associate apathy as like, that's just part of being a teenager. And I would say apathy is more the common response to the way our culture engages with adolescence, rather than something that is inherent to adolescence itself, right? If you hit a stage where your brain development and your identity development says, I'm supposed to be trying and learning and making decisions and risking and failing, but everything around you culturally is saying, here's the path, you do this, you don't get many choices. Apathy is a pretty obvious and natural response to that. And so is overachieving, right? Of like, well, okay, I have to do all the things that I'm being told to do. Now the only choice comes in if I stack an additional massive amount of things on top of that and just forego sleep, right? And so that was what was particularly interesting to me, was how much those students that I think most people just go, oh, well, those are just two totally different types of students actually had in common with each other.
Interesting. That's fantastic.
I'm curious. So, with kind of all that we've talked about so far, what would you say is sort of your synopsis slash like elevator pitch when talking to somebody about this book that you're trying to basically like sell it to them, or just even like explain what you're working on. And I imagine it's got to be different for both of you in how you talk about it. So I'm going to start with Grace. And I'm curious, when you're talking to your fellow students, because I imagine you are like having conversations with them about doing this book, what is sort of your elevator pitch to them about the book?
Yeah, so I would usually say it's about like young people motivation. Like that's basically what I say. I'm not really good at elevator pitches. I do not go to Wharton, so I'm not like a business major in any regard. I nor do I want to be, but I'll just say it's about like young people motivation. And then in a conversation with them, because I'm much better at conversations, I'll actually like talk about like what we did and what the things that we found out about it. And if I were to summarize it, not an elevator pitch, I would basically just talk about it's about relationships and like how relationships form motivation and
Oh, yeah.
encourage us to do better. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like it.
That's actually really good because everything you've mentioned so far about what inhibits or what helps you in your motivation, whether it's family and social dynamics or whatever. I think you said it exactly. That was a very good non-elevator pitch.
Definitely. What about you, Becca? How do you go about kind of putting the book out there with the folks that you come into contact with?
Yeah, like Grace, this is a growth edge for me, right? Although my PhD is in rhetoric and composition, I'm actually not great at being rhetorical like myself, right? It depends on who I'm talking to because I'm still working it out. But when I'm talking with other parents like myself, usually the way that I'm talking about it is, listen, it is so hard for us as parents to not get caught on the hooks of our own fears and concerns when we are engaging with our kids. And what I've observed is, as especially my older one gets older and is in middle school now, it gets harder and harder for my brain to upgrade that, like, to him, a year is so long, mom. Oh my gosh, that's forever ago. I can barely remember it. And to me, I'm like, but I can still remember when I had to childproof everything in our kitchen, right? Like to keep you from literally killing yourself by accident, right? So when I'm talking with parents about it, I'm saying, listen, one of the main values for me as a parent, talking with all these young people across the country, is that when it's not my kid, I can hear and empathize and practice and notice what my fears are that are getting in the way of me being able to have a real, genuine conversation in a safety zone, so that then I'm already aware where those landmines are before I turn around and have conversations with my actual kids. Because then I'm aware of like, oh, there's a thing. Oh, no, that's me. That's me projecting onto you. That's my fear going into this conversation rather than my listening coming into this conversation, right? So that's been the biggest value for me as a parent. As an educator, the biggest value for me was in realizing how often so much of the ways that we are trained to behave in school systems, and I think this is even more so. I had the luxury of teaching at the college level where you have more freedom, although that's changing in a lot of colleges. In the K-12 system, teachers have very little freedom. They have so much prescribed to them about what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it and what they're supposed to cover and all the kinds of things. And listening to all the young people that we spoke with was an excellent reminder for me that as an educator, I frequently would fixate on like, what's the exact right technique I should use? What's the activity that I should be doing? What's the like particular, if I just find the right thing to do or the right content to cover, it'll solve all the problems. And it's just not true. It's the relationships, just like Grace was saying. As an educator, it was a great reminder that it is the relationships I form with the students that will make the difference in how the content unfolds, how the activities unfold, the level of engagement, the level of learning. And that doesn't require going and doing fancy PD and changing your whole curriculum and everything else. It just requires finding something you genuinely like about each of the students in front of you and being able to connect with them about that. And that is not an easy thing to do, but it's a very simple thing to do. And that reminder was was really powerful for me. So those are usually the things that I talk about when I'm talking with people. I'm talking about like what was powerful for me as I was doing the research that I hope the book helps people feel and feel comfortable with by virtue of getting to hear all these stories and see it from perspectives other than their own.
And I love that you brought up middle school a couple of times, because I know for me, for my kids, middle school is where I really started to be concerned. Elementary school is just playtime, really. I mean, they're learning little things, oh, you got your fractions and all that. But once you get into middle school or junior high is where you really find that the cliques start forming and you get a lot more social pressure. There's a lot more things that could affect a child's confidence and self-confidence and self-worth. And I wonder at this point, have you considered writing a second book to people with preteens on how to start that motivational journey, how to start that relationship, how to get it to where you can move to a point like, yeah, I feel pretty good about myself when I'm in middle school and then in high school and then in college, to maintain those relationships, which maintains that motivation. So what's book two?
Yeah, I think we've had a few people ask us like, what's book two? Other people are like, well, what about for parents? Because, sometimes as a parent, I'm having some challenges with my own motivation. And for educators, like sometimes as an educator, I'm having challenges with my own motivation, right? So I don't know what book two is, but I actually think that your point about middle school, one of the things that I was surprised by is not all the interviewees, but several of the interviewees did reference key middle school experiences, even though they were, like I remember one was a senior in high school when we were speaking with them. Another student that spoke about that, I think, was already in college when she, was still referencing that. I think, but I'd be curious for your take on it once you have the chance to like fully process the book. I think what's in the book already actually does apply to starting to think through middle school.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like this is something that I could use with my 11-year-old who, 2 years ago was 9, and now he's getting ready to enter 6th grade. And I'm seeing all these different things, like you were saying, like Danny was saying, like, that kindergarten through 5th grade is all like playtime and learning basics and just, developing friendships, like kind of getting the base sort of situated for the most part. And then, get into middle school when things really start to ramp up. And for him, like he's very like highly intelligent, and he very much has gotten to the point where he will pick and choose the things that he finds and deems worth completing, worth doing. And his reasoning for not is like, I'm bored. Like this is not exciting to me. And I'm like, oh shoot, okay, this, I mean, he's got a junior and senior level like reading comprehension and writing. Like it's insane. And so he has assignments that he doesn't turn in because he didn't finish it all. And since he didn't finish it all, he's like, nah, I'm not gonna turn it in. And I'm like,
Yep.
dude, like,
Yep.
even, I mean, you did the first half of the
like,
thing and you didn't do the second half. Just
turn in
you,
anything.
Yeah,
Anything's
just
better
turn
than
it
a
in.
zero. Anything is better than a
Exactly.
zero.
Yeah. And
I've had that
so,
conversation.
yeah. So I feel like what you're talking about in the book, he's at that point, like almost where it's like, I could just be like, yeah, you kind of have these like, I don't really give a shit about like this, and this, or I don't understand why I should care about finishing this section up or whatever. And so, yeah, we've been having lots of that discussion. So from that standpoint, I'm very interested in the book because I feel like my wife and I were right there in the trenches with him, and just all of the intelligence. And his sister, on the other hand, sees him doing these things. She's like, "Oh no, like I know I need to get these things done." So she's like she's finishing everything up, no problem. But I feel like as they tend to kind of divert, because he'll be in middle school and she's still got a few years of elementary school left, that she's going to kind of make her own way out of it. But it sounds like to me that there's quite a bit for middle school parents to definitely. But I think the teacher side of things is interesting, like that. Like you were talking about, like you've got teachers asking about, or even professionals too. I mean, I know my wife, she's in not an executive type position, but she's up there in the manager style, and there's a lot of times where she's just like, I don't really care about doing these, like, or this is really annoying to me. So
Yep.
yeah, there's that side of it too.
It's real. I mean, because that's the thing that allows for high school students' motivation is the same stuff that allows for adult motivation, allows for workplace motivation, right? It's all the same. It's just different examples, right? But we all need to feel like that we can make meaningful choices about what it is that we're doing, and that those choices relate to a goal that we actually care about, and that we have relationships with people that are actually supporting us in trying to reach those goals and care whether or not we reach them, and that we're capable of either learning the skills that we need to reach the goal or already having those skills. And if any of those things are missing, we're not going to feel motivated, right? And then we only have access to like the sort of short-term boost of things like panic, urgency, immediate deadline, right? Or oh, I really want this like particular reward, right? Like my kids are still motivated enough by sugar, since I give it little enough that even with the 11-year-old, I can be like, listen, like we did a high ropes course and he's terrified of heights, but he still wanted to do it. And I was like, great for pushing yourself. And then he gets on it and he's freaking out and he's frozen. I'm like, listen, you get across these obstacles, you get a whole bottle of Gatorade, right? Like, but that's not like a lifelong sustainable motivation, right? Like you cannot motivate yourself through everything with sugar, or you're going to have some real issues, right? Like you need something, you need a different kind of motivation. Maybe Danny can motivate himself for everything with sugar, but most of us can't.
I'm getting that donut across from that rope area there. Let's go.
It's over there. Let's get it. Is that a pizza? I can get the pizza. Yeah. And I think too, a lot of times for me is remembering that those external motivations are something, but the internal motivations too, that just the old phrase attaboy, you give someone that encouragement or a gold star, and you give them that. It's not really a physical thing, but each kid finding their own way that they're motivated. Like my oldest is hands down, it's money. He doesn't care about anything else. He just wants money and he saves it, which is great. Whereas my 14-year-old is all about the internal stuff. He wants, a quiet word to the side and, a bit of praise and things like that. But learning to motivate yourself is much more difficult because you're in your own head so much and you do have all of those things in front of you. So I love that this book is coming out because it will, I think, help a lot of parents and perhaps, teachers and professionals as well to be able to look at that and say, okay, what does this person need? What does my child need? What does this person need? What do I need? To get you going and through the things, and then hopefully build the self-discipline to just make things happen if you need to.
Yeah, because a lot of it is also modeling, right? Especially as when you're parenting older young people, yapping at them, consequence, right? All that stuff, like that goes way down in its effectiveness. What I can do to motivate my 6-year-old is very different than what I can do to motivate my middle schooler.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only going to become more so as he gets older, right? But as another person that I was talking to pointed out, I thought that was such a great way of putting it. Like, yeah, your teens might not be listening to you anymore, but they are still watching you. Right. And so
good point.
Getting clear on your own motivation, on what modeling you are providing in front of the young people that you care about. How are you engaging with others? How are you making meaningful choices? How are you maintaining that growth mindset of like, okay, I can learn this. Like I can learn this thing that relates to this goal I want to accomplish, rather than just casually being like, yeah, I'm not good at that. Those are the things that I find myself noticing more in myself, of being like, oh yeah, I can't just tell him all about how important it is to have meaningful relationships from a variety of groups, so that if something goes awry in one group, you've got other support networks to back you up, and that, like what those authentic relationships look like. Do I have those authentic relationships right now around me? Have I been putting the work into doing that? Right? Like, what does he see me doing? Does he see me just holding up in my room and not like nurturing any relationships with people? That was definitely one a couple of years ago as I started this project that I realized. I was like, oh, all these young people are talking about how important these various relationships are. And I have not cultivated any relationships in the place that I had moved to, even though I'd been living in Pennsylvania for like 4 years at that point. I had cultivated no local relationships. All my friendships were with people from other states. And I was like, yeah, no, I gotta fix this. If I want to be encouraging my kid about the importance of like real in-person, live, supportive relationships, then I need to have those.
Yeah.
Right.
No, definitely.
I'll add one more thing about that. I think it's definitely like what is shaping, it's the untold. I'll also add it's also like the values and like the stories that are not being told. I was sort of thinking about this in conversations with some friends at school about the stories that our parents would tell us, not literally like literally the stories from their childhood, but also the stories and like the messages that we received from their actions and from the things that they the choices that they made in the careers that they decided to go into. What messages are we receiving as a result? And I think having those conversations at an elite university, the common message was that the choices they made were very much sort of framed in like an elitism type message. And that was the message that we received as well. And so we're learning how to sort of unlearn those messages and unlearn those stories. But I just kind of want to add that because I think it's very much goes back to what we were saying about it is the what's untold. And children like myself, I'm definitely still looking at my parents and I'm still reading like the choices that they're making. And I'm trying to figure out like, are those things I want to make as well for the rest of
Yeah.
my life?
I mean, that happens even as you get into your 30s. Like you're still, if your parents are still around, like you're still constantly looking at them, for different things. Like I remember when I became a parent, like I looked back at a lot of the things that my parents did with me, and my wife and I sat down and talked about what her parents did with her and decided, okay, what things do we want to take from that and what things do we want to just leave on the side of the road? Like how do we want to raise our kids? What does that look like? Because you can either try to recreate the wheel or you can take bits and pieces and plug that in and then discard things that you're like, nope, I don't want to try that. Like that's not going to work for us. So I think that is a continual, if you've got a healthy relationship type of thing, that's a continual thing that you're looking at, kind of picking and choosing what you want to, I guess, mirror, emulate people that are around you are doing. I like that insight you got there. Well, hey, we are pretty much up against our time. It was great getting to talk to you guys and reconnect. This book, I'm very excited to see getting to come out, and we've only got a couple of months to wait for it to actually hit the shelves, so that's exciting. I think that this is something too that a lot of the listeners will be interested in, and probably be something that might even get put on the book of the month thing that we do a book of the month giveaway actually. So yeah, so make sure that takes place. Might even try to get some copies to maybe be at a home dad con too. That would be another fun thing because like I feel like guys are always like, oh, did you happen to get any of those? I get guys all the time. I've had guys the past couple of years like, oh, you talked to such and such a author. By any chance, do you have any of their books available? So, and a lot of times we're like, no, but if you go to this website, you can find their stuff kind of deal. So that's another thing. But yeah, we definitely are excited to be able to help you guys get the word out about the book and really just kind of help people see just the importance of what it looks like to motivate. Before we go though, too, is there a specific website that people can go to find the book and purchase it?
Yeah. So if you go to canyouhelpmegive.com, we just left the expletive out of the URL address. So canyouhelpmegive.com, you'll find links for any place to pre-order the book, or once it's live, obviously, on July 9th, then order the book. Also links to some podcast episodes that dive into specific follow-up questions that parents or educators asked us. So that's the best place to go to find all the info. You also, if you're an Instagram person, I'm not, I will admit, Grace is the amazing, awesome force behind the Instagram account, but you can follow us on Instagram as well, which is the full name, including the expletive. You cursed before, I can say it, right? So it's at Can You Help Me Give a Shit on Instagram. So
awesome. So we'll get all that up there too, so folks can see that. And yeah, looking forward to the book. Thank you so much again for coming on. And we really appreciate getting to talk to you. And good luck with everything going forward. And y'all have a great time with this launch of the book. And for everybody else, thank you so much for listening. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.